Hello, everyone, and this is Mohit, and I'm back again with you all. I'm sure you are having a great time. This is day three, and for those of you who have joined just now, let me give you a quick introduction. I'm Mohit, VP at Lambda Test, taking care of strategic sales and partnerships. And with me is one of the most awaited panel discussion panelist for an amazing topic outlined basis what the feedback you shared, right? So we are going to talk about how AI can be leveraged to bridge developer and QA workflows and design workflows to really create a powerhouse of innovation in the space of software development lifecycle. We're going to get started. Without any further ado, let me introduce our panelists. None of them need any introductions. We have been receiving so many queries about them, but let me briefly introduce our panel to you. First up, we have Artem, who is the founder and CEO at TestRigor, very passionate about helping companies accelerate the QA processes with a very distinctive focus. He says that, hey, manual testers are the backbone of the industry and they will remain so. So let's create solutions to enable them and preserve that capability on how they can really empower companies to create quality products. We'll hear more thoughts from Artem very soon. Koti Rosenblatt in the house as well. He's the CTO at Katalon. I see him as a true catalyst for the minds of other talented leaders to truly produce visionary experiences for developers and testers out there. He has worked across multiple organizations like MailChimp, HubLogix, Merlin, Ruby Software, and many more. And guess what? He has an education background in political science and psychology, and all that comes into play when he builds experiences at scale for all. We have Diana Mounter, very popularly known as Brooklyn, needs no introduction among the GitHub community and developers in general. She's leading the way in transforming the developer experience and design experience at GitHub, the powerhouse of GitHub, as she's truly known. Those of you who love the dark mode in GitHub, she's the brain behind it. She's the passion for system thinking and inclusive design. She's also the mastermind behind GitHub's design system overall. And I love her philosophy on follow the energy and how accessibility is key to design systems. Really see the excitement from the community on hearing thoughts from her. We have Guljeet Nagpal, who is also going to be part of the panel. Deep expertise in continuous testing. He has seen it all from the Mercury days. He brings the OG insights on how testing automation has evolved. And currently, he's leading product and strategy at ACCELQ, one of the most loved tools out there. Last but very significant and equally making impact in testing ecosystem is Ivan Harris, the chief product and technology officer at Provar. He's a veteran in creating innovative enterprise software solutions. Now guess what, he brings a deep expertise. He's worked across aerospace, defense industry in designing, writing and testing safety critical embedded software systems. From gaming tools to many other startups, he has really empowered lot of organizations out there. With that, I know there is a lot of excitement now. You know much more about the panel. Let's get started with their thoughts. Okay, now, panelists, our community has been hearing to a lot of innovative thoughts over the last 3 days, and they have been telling us that they're really looking forward to know more about your perspective on how you are building these systems within your organizations, how you see these systems shaping the industry in future, and if you can also share where to start today. Nothing like it. These are the kind of questions they have shared with us that they are excited about. Without further ado, I'm going to start with the first question out there. And let's hear it first from Artem, Diana, and Ivan in that order. How can AI enhance the collaboration between design, development, and QA teams to ensure a seamless user experience? Artem, take it away.
Excellent question. I love it. I believe there are a couple of things in here to highlight. So first of all, I strongly believe that AI is changing and will continue to change the landscape. Literally, regardless how it it will play out. Anywhere between, maybe it will stuck to whatever it is right now. Maybe it like AGI will take over and make us all slaves. It's like huge variation, but what's certain is tool will continue to improve, and the usage of AI will continue to skyrocket, and we have not even seen anywhere close to what is possible. So companies will continue to adopt AI. Your company is probably where you, which ones you work for right now, will continue to build more AI features, as well as the tools, engineering tools and testing tools will continue to evolve, and everyone will have more and more advanced features built in their products as we progress. So that's one. Second is, if you think about it, AI, and specifically generative AI LLMs, is improving how easy it is to do certain things, and it's improving collaboration as well. So it's efficiency and collaboration. How's that? Well, efficiency, I think, is doesn't need any further introduction. Everybody can imagine different ways how we can be more efficient with the tools, more efficient tools, right? In different ways, where ways like the Copilot help people to be more efficient engineers. I'm sure Katalon, Provar, and ACCELQ have all efficient ways of building and adding more ways to generate code to move things faster. In like in TestRigor, we also use it to like execute the test and help you to write the test and so on and so forth. So as you can see, any help you can get, it is very, very helpful. The majority of it, I think, is in test creation. But most importantly is the collaboration. So why is that? Because LLMs is kind of a joining tool, in the sense that they bring the same language to everyone. If you think about it, what previously or what traditionally is happening is different language for everyone. So product managers speak their own language, then PA speaks their own language, and engineers speak their own language, and they have their silos, and they don't share code, and they don't know what's going on. I mean, we can collaborate. We have to get on a common language of, I don't know, English, French, or whatever it is to collaborate, but then they go into deep depth of what they do, where there is no sharing. So it's all very much siloed. And I believe LLMs will help to get it on a new level to improve that collaboration, because now LLMs will be helping people to get all on the same page. Maybe more and more tools will be using that language, or at least providing the reports in English language based on whatever internal stuff is going on. All of that will improve collaboration between different teams and different parts of organization, which in turn will improve efficiency going forward. In TestRigor, we believe in collaboration very much. We are a collaborative tool. Everybody can use it. Product managers, mostly, of course, QA automation engineers and QA testers, as well as engineers. So there is no limitation of who can use the tool. And we believe that's the one of the ways how like AI is helping people to become more efficient, because more efficient collaboration it means in particular more efficiency in delivery. That's what I believe in.
Awesome. I'll see. You covered a lot there, so I'll see if I can add some perspectives from design and from GitHub. One, yeah, I very much believe in sort of creating bridges between design and development, QA, all parts of the team. In my intro, I mentioned that I work on design systems for folks that are not super familiar. That's like components, UI components, and sort of codifying patterns on the front end. And part of the work of design systems is to create a unified language so that designers and developers can kind of know what we're talking about when we say, hey, we want the primary button here or whatever. And so, I think AI makes it possible to go beyond things like linters and automated tests in order to like measure the more subjective aspects of a good user experience, what it means to be high quality. So like code is more, I would say, more definitive or more objective. It's sort of a little bit easier to say that thing is done and it works than it is to say, is this design good enough? That is a challenge that many designers experience. But that, as you develop patterns and learn what patterns and interactions are really successful and make your experience user-friendly, there are often things that can start to be like defined in code. And so that wherever you can do that, I'm like a big fan of that, because that often leads to being able to either test against those things, like, are we using the right button style here? Or with how AI and Copilot at GitHub is evolving, we are also able to sort of, all of that information, so get sort of added to your knowledge base, right? And so things like best practices with coding standards that reflect, the output that you want to see, or contribution guidelines, all those guidelines from the UI and the UX side of things, that can all contribute to enabling someone make the right decisions when they're working on something, because they have access to that. They have access to the context of your particular code base, as well as LLMs and wider knowledge. I think we find, so GitHub tends to have a fairly technical design team compared to perhaps the average design team, probably not a surprise in developer sort of tool companies. And I think like a lot of, we talk with engineers in pull requests, and whether or not your design team is really collaborating in something like a pull request, a lot of design and development decisions on whether this is good enough to ship happen within that pull request. And so it's actually like a major point of research and exploration for us at GitHub to like what that's like deploying Copilot within that pull request flow. So I think that there's stuff that we can already do and is evolving and being worked on. And I think, about bridging that sort of that language barrier and gap, like helping build stronger understandings, is one of the sort of ways I think AI can really enhance and improve that collaboration. I could go on, but I want to let some other people speak as well. But I think it's a really, really exciting possibility, and it's very much something that I'm passionate about creating that shared language, and I think that's part of what AI can do.
Thanks, Diana and Artem. When I think about the answer to this question, I'm always reminded of how we've constantly tried to shorten the gap between defining the problem and delivering a solution. And what I'm hearing from both Artem and Diana is part of that is obviously the collaboration, but having a shared understanding, a shared knowledge of what we're trying to build. And I think with AI, there's an opportunity for context, intent, goals to flow through from design through to the finished solution in a much smoother way, and to connect those silos and break those silos down. So everything starts with the problem domain and defining a solution to that problem, And if I think about applying AI to each step of that value journey, AI-powered requirements management tools can help capture those requirements, analyze them, come up with a plan, communicate that plan in a concise way, summarizing vast amounts of information into digestible chunks so people can align to the project goals really quickly. And then those requirements can be mocked up in design tools, and design tools today have AI plugins that can help automatically analyze the designs to make sure that they're fit for purpose for the target use case and the target users, for example. And then once the design moves into development, then of course the stuff that Diana's been talking about with your co-pilots helping you to create snippets of code much more rapidly than staring at a blank piece of paper and coming up with the same thing over and over again. And in parallel, my domain, test automation solutions, are tools powered by AI that will help you through the whole test design process, from test planning, test design, test authoring, execution, analysis, and healing. And finally, when you deploy your solution, whether it's a feature or a full product to production, then there are AI-powered feedback tools which can take the user experience and digest it into a format that can then be fed back into the requirements phase for a nice closed loop. So in summary, the integration of AI across design, development, and QA creates a continuous shared understanding of project goals, reduces silos, and improves collaboration. So there are two types of user experiences that are better. It's better for the people creating those features or products, but it's also a better experience for the end user because we've shortened that gap and we're delivering what we intended to deliver.
Well, that's fantastic. So it's clear that breaking barriers to enhance interaction and collaboration with intentionally driving value journey across different phases is the clear thought coming across from all of you. And I think that's a great segue to our next question. How is AI transforming the way developer and QA teams they're going to collaborate in future, right? And 𝐀𝐫𝐭𝐞𝐦, will come back to you after that, Diana, and 𝐂𝐨𝐭𝐞𝐦 to you for this question. 𝐀𝐫𝐭𝐞𝐦, let's hear your thoughts first on this area, on how the collaboration between developer teams and QA teams is going to evolve with AI. You're on mute, 𝐀𝐫𝐭𝐞𝐦. Can you please unmute yourself? Okay, we'll take a couple of seconds while 𝐀𝐫𝐭𝐞𝐦 joins us back. Diana, we'll pass it on to you. Let's hear your thoughts on this while we get 𝐀𝐫𝐭𝐞𝐦 back on stage.
Is he's not? No, it's still muted. Yep. Okay. That's everyone at least understands the whole you're on mute situation from one of the small positive things from so many people experiencing working remotely, I guess. Yeah, so I mean, I think like following on from some of the thoughts in the last question, I think there's like multiple ways in which it's going to transform the way that we can collaborate. I think one of the things I find quite interesting are, if you imagine assigning roles to your AI tool or your co-pilot so that they can be responding to you with that sort of narrowed down, more specific context of a designer. So, so if you're a QA person, so if you're a QA person, you're wanting to make sure that this is following the right UX standards, or you've used the right implementation of a particular component or whatever, that co-pilot can be specifically talking back to you as if it were that other person. I don't think that, I think I'd probably share the views of many folks at GitHub in particular, but many designers. I think, there's some point, we don't want to replace that human to human interaction, but like build that empathy and bridge those understandings and make you more efficient, as Artem was saying. And so I think I really like the co-pilot sense. I think there's a limit to which an AI representation of a role can like completely cover that. But I think like then it can get you closer, be at the final result more efficiently, and then your friend in QA or in engineering is probably going to be a little happier with you because they're like, oh wow, you really took the time to get this to like a really great result. I think one of the panelists, I think Ivan maybe, was mentioning like multi-modal AI, so like being able to take in the context of how something looks and check against that. Again, I think when you're, I work in a company where we've got people distributed across multiple continents, like in completely different time zones. And so AI being able to maybe answer some of those, bridge that gap again and answer some of those easier questions, I think that can just really help in that collaboration process, and can mean less time on one person's part from like kind of explaining each level of a particular design. I think so. I feel like part of the role is communication. So whether it's communicating through a visual where you maybe don't have to sort of redline every detail because you can use AI to help you get feedback, or it could be even on the side of something I'm excited about is like AI is making it easier for designers to develop higher fidelity prototypes in code and get much closer to a real experience, even though it may not be production code. And I think, a prototype communicates a lot more information to your engineering partner than just a static mockup, right? So I think of how AI is transforming the way we collaborate in multiple levels. I think it's both. I think particularly through that async communication, I think there's a lot of benefits that we're going to see there for sure. I think we've got a technical problem with there, so I'm not sure who's next.
But we will be back soon. Guljeet, over to you. Very keen to hear your thoughts on this.
Sure, thanks, Mohit. Yeah, I think Diana, between this question and the last question, covered a lot of the grounds in terms of collaboration, the value chain kind of efficiency, right? If I were to just kind of take that thought and run some specific process areas in which we are already seeing traction, whether it be development upstream tools or downstream tools, some of the key process areas definitely, shifting left with testing as well as shifting right with testing. So we're already seeing AI tools make an impact on, shifting left by doing code analysis and really kind of trying to bridge that gap. So some of these automation powered by AI is helping bridge the gap, because a lot of these things were always talked about in theory, but were very hard to implement practically, right? We all loved the concept of shift left. We've probably heard it for like a decade, but the lines are never that blurry between tester and developer, right? As much as we all want it to be, right? So we're already seeing, on the shift left perspective, shift right, I haven't seen many tools make a significant kind of grounds there, but I'm sure it's just around the corner with automated AI-based monitoring, sending feedback, and creating a very closed loop by on the shift right side. Some of the other areas, the usual suspects are obviously automated testing, right? But where I also see, and Diana kind of talked about it, right, with GitHub Copilot. We're seeing in our customer base GitLab Duo, which is trying to work across the ecosystem of the software development lifecycle, and that kind of collaboration to bring in, for instance, defect prediction, right? Bring in defect prediction to power other process areas, which may be proactive code reviews or proactive regression automation, right? So we are going to see a lot of the blending in of these process areas leveraged by the tool, because clearly organizationally it was a lot of challenge to accomplish this. Same on the test data management side. How many times we all have heard, majority of us come from the testing background or testing tools. How many times we've heard that we got everything right, but my test data is just not ready, or my environment isn't ready, right? So again, huge area of where AI can power some of that collaboration, right? Synthetic data generation has always been very difficult. In reality, it comes down to real test data to do, a lot of these validations. But, we're seeing, some good grounds being made on that process area. Other than that, I would say, general communication and collaboration is something where that data can be analyzed pretty quickly and feedback loop be created. So these are some of the key process areas that, just to kind of build on other folks on how we are actually seeing this play out. I think it has to mature a lot more before all of these process areas can come together. But it's in the right track.
Great, and glad to have 𝐀𝐫 back now.
Well, we'll see. Can you hear me?
Absolutely loud and clear.
Okay.
And just to bring you back, 𝐀𝐫, we are still discussing on what's your take on how the developer and QA interaction collaboration will change in the near future with all the capabilities and AI experiences around us.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo a little bit of what probably a few people have touched on. I'll start by saying I really liked where Artem started in the very first question, talking about how, particularly, I think most of us are talking about large language models today when we talk about AI, although there's a lot more to it. And I like his observation that what they're doing is giving us common language or a way to interpret each other's language in different domains in ways that help bridge gaps. So we see that in a lot of different ways. Between design and engineering, or even product and engineering, we use a design tool that lets engineers and product people who may not have skills in the design tool itself to describe things in English language, and then get at least a mock-up of maybe a new screen or a dialogue that they need, and then they can interact more concretely with our design team. And similarly, our design team can take some requirements for a screen from a PM, or even, God forbid, from an engineer, and quickly get a mock-up, and then make that really high quality, high definition design. And I feel like that accelerates a lot of our process. Specifically between development and QA, one thing that I think may resonate with Diana is, I see it as a way to help create artifacts more effectively that people pass back and forth between stages. So a very simple one, right? You talked a lot about PRs and how you interact in that space. We find that getting AI assistance in creating PRs, commit messages, et cetera, can really help the communication between dev and QA, because if you get a better description of what happened in the new code, QA can quickly look at that, see it in a language they understand, rather than just as a big diff, and that gives them insight into what should I be testing here? What is this commit doing? What is this code doing? And similarly, we even see when QA runs into an error, for example, if they can run that error message through AI, which we have some features in our platform to help you do that, you can quickly find out, is this something that's just an environmental issue, and maybe I should give it another shot before I hand it back to development, or can I find out that this is in fact an issue that is definitely in the code, and I should turn this around and quit trying to futz with it. So I find that something that we really benefit from. And we've talked about design to development to QA. We even see opportunities, and well, actually, I think Ivan touched on this a little bit. The whole goal is to get software out into deployment and in front of customers. And we see with the opportunity again to distill information and pass it back into other teams. So, for example, we have a product called TrueTest, and basically it monitors production usage and then distills that into user flows diagrams that can be looked at by a product manager or a QA lead to say, how is this software actually being used? Am I covering all the use cases? What are the popular things? One thing we find out, again, kind of circling back to something I haven't talked about, this all starts with requirements, but we sometimes find out from looking at what people do in production that they're doing things that nobody wrote a requirement for because they interact with the software in a way that we didn't anticipate. And I think that, again, being able to take that sort of high volume behavior in production, distill it into something that you can then pass back to a PM or QA or engineer to say, here's what we really need to look at. I think that is something we've seen a lot of value in. And I'm a little less worried than Artem about the advent of AGI and any possible enslavement. But I do think that it's important to remember that whatever we have access today is the worst we're ever going to see. And there are so much is accelerating so quickly. I think there's going to be tremendous opportunity as we see improved multimodal LLMs coming out to interact again between design domains, which are highly visual, and domains where like development, engineering, where we interact more with text to help us, bridge those gaps. For example, in visual testing, I know I'm looking forward to having visual tests be less about my looking to see what all the differences are and having that summarized and just say, oh, the button moved, to the top left and you were testing for it in the wrong place, or it moved and that was actually part of the requirements for this release, so it's fine. So I think there's some really neat stuff that we get to do in the future too, even though we're already taking great advantage today. And then I would be remiss not to point out that I think we're all probably benefiting from GitHub Copilot within our engineering teams today. So thank you, Diana and GitHub.
Truly exciting to hear the kind of promises that you're making about the technology, and great to hear your perspectives. We're going to move to phase 2 of this discussion, and we got a lot of ground to cover, so we're going to pace this up a little bit. So with all these promises, I think the next question is that, hey, the show has to go on. So as you said, 𝐀𝐫, that the objective is to move the code to production, and this technology is available now. So what are the practical ways to integrate AI into existing dev and QA workflows? Because of course, rip and replace is not the option out there. So where to start as of today? And Artem, over to you, followed by 𝐀𝐫 and Ivan on this for your take. Go ahead, Artem.
Thank you. Rip and replace. Well, sometimes I guess you have to do that in some cases. If you realize, hey, there is a better way to do it, how are we going to do? Because remember, before the advance of versioning systems, people were versioning their code by zip files in folders, right? When CSV came out and SVN and then Git eventually, and GitHub took over from it. So, but the point being is at some point there are better ways to do things conceptually, and you would want, and everyone would eventually move. So you would want to do things effectively. So there is no no point of in today's world to keep your code files in zips in the folders, right? So that's my thought on that.
Am I up next? I think so. Yeah. So in terms of what's least intrusive, actually I think there's. Although I think that, I mentioned this to Diana earlier, I think that the chatbots we're dealing with today are probably also the least good way that we're going to ever interact with AI. They are non-intrusive because you can make them part of the what used to be a fully human workflow, right? You can maybe type your description of a problem in and then type it into another domain in your workflow. So that's a way to kind of get things into the workflow. But what I look forward to, and then again, Copilot is really well integrated into most of the coding workflows. What I do look forward to is more opportunity or more instances where it sort of disappears into what you're doing. So for example, the tool that I use for my Git commits, it quickly writes my commit messages for me, and I can then tweak those to my heart's content. We have a system that we call virtual data analyst that sort of summarizes your test report for where you are in your release process for your current cycle, whatever, if you're on a 2-week cycle. And it just automatically gets generated for you from the current state of things. So, starting with things that are just sort of outside the workflow that you can pull in, like a chatbot, and then gradually, layering in tools into the workflow, I think is where we're going. And I think over time, we'll all quit thinking about like, is this AI that I'm interacting with? And we'll go back to interacting with systems that are augmented by AI that we can sort of more smoothly interact with.
Yeah, that's a nice segue, 𝐀𝐫𝐭𝐞𝐦. You mentioned layering in solutions. I would advocate adopting a layered incremental approach where we supplement existing processes rather than rip and replace. Although I do acknowledge what Artem's saying, there are occasions where you can look at something and you look at it and you clearly think that that's a rip and replace opportunity right now. So, but generally, if you take an incremental approach and look at your existing technology stack and look for AI solutions that can plug into that to give you more efficiency and effectiveness. But before you start doing that, baseline your current performance so that you can then assess your post-adoption ROI and make sure that investment was worthwhile. And some examples, we've already talked about coding assistants that could do more than just generate code snippets. They can do refactoring, generate comments that you mentioned, 𝐀𝐫𝐭𝐞𝐦, and generate documentation, and a lot more. And you can do that with minimal training, and you can have very high adoption of those solutions. In my domain, test automation, you can have assistants that can help you write test plans, test cases, test scripts, orchestrate execution, etc., without much training and very little disruption. And even when it comes to CI/CD, you can plug into your pipelines all sorts of tools that can do code analysis, look for security vulnerabilities, anomalies, etc. Again, without too much disruption. And if it's not working for you, it's really easy to turn off. So by layering it and doing an incremental approach, your teams can continue to work within their current workflows, get used to using AI, and then you can think about the moving beyond the low-hanging fruit to some of the more difficult things to implement, but also deliver a decent ROI for you.
Well, that's great to hear, and I think there are a bunch of takeaways which our attendees definitely have on where to start as of today. Let's drill further down. So we spoke about design, development, quality. It all goes back to converting that intent to the final product. So let's come back on how can AI-driven tools help bridge the gap between the design intent and the final product. What's happening on that front? We'll start with Diana, followed by Guljeet and Ivan there. Over to you, Diana.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting because if you think about it, there's quite a lot more behind a design mock-up than just like what it looks like, and that could often be documented in requirements, for example, by the designer or with the product manager, depending on how your team works. And I think large language models can be quite good at comparing one document with another. So like you could feasibly ask whether the requirements given for a specific feature are all met by the like final screenshot or implementation. We talked earlier a little bit about multi-modals, where you can ask to compare images and things like that. I think that, I think there's also things that are maybe already codified in code. So I talked about design systems earlier. Perhaps you can auto-fix like the engineering work based on the design system, because some of the intent behind the design is already like assumed in a way and codified in those components. I think that's actually where some of the challenges happen sometimes, is that a designer may be assuming an engineer knows that component X in their mock-up is represented in the design system, but you get large companies, new people joining. It sometimes is hard to keep that all in check. So imagine if you can just ask Copilot, like, which components is this using, or it already is just built in your PR or whatever to auto fix those, because it just knows. Well, it just knows based on a lot of hard work by a lot of people, but you know what I mean. I think there's also probably interesting policy probabilities with things like if you do sort of friction log monitoring. So that's part, like, I think usability testing by humans, but also there's testing that we can implement in code as well. And so monitoring for like degradations in the user experience, I think, is also important. And when really important when you're introducing a new design, like, are you degrading like key parts of that overall experience? Because it's often not just one screen you're touching, but perhaps a whole user flow. Probably one, I know we've got a lot of questions to go through, so I'll just add like one more thing. I think there's interesting stuff happening around accessibility. So we're talking a lot about how things look and how a thing is designed, but we're often trying to build interfaces that sometimes some part of the population cannot see. And so we are, through working on accessibility, in a way, we are getting better at defining a good user experience in code and supported with requirements. So I think that I find it really interesting to look at the really important work that's happening there and the developments that are happening in building accessible applications in alignment with what AI is going to bring. So yeah, I feel like it's a really important area, and I think it's really exciting to see how that evolves.
Guljeet, over to you.
Yeah, if I were to take kind of just a realistic example, we were involved recently with one of the largest health services companies, and from design intent, perfect example of how AI can kind of fast track that design intent to final product validation. A lot of these companies, organizations are looking to modernize their application landscape. A chunk of the application development that's happening for Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 companies is more on modernizing the landscape. And when they make that modernizing decision, they first look at build versus buy, right? Whether they should be looking at some packaged applications out there or what have you. More often than not, they do go towards kind of buying a packaged application, but a lot of times, especially when legacy mainframes, legacy systems are involved, where security is kind of paramount with healthcare companies, like I'm giving an example, or financial services companies, or governments, they have to do build, right? And the moment they get into this build of modernizing, this specific example had about 300 plus legacy mainframe terminal emulator based screens. And they had to modernize this whole application landscape. And they went through many vendors analysis, internal analysis, probably took them about 6 months or so to come up with a plan, which was an 18-month-long modernization plan. In today's day and age, that just can't cut it, right? And with the latest advancements, what we saw, and we were kind of fortunate to be part of this strategic initiative, was to basically leverage AI right from the get-go, and create design intent, feed these screens and feed the production monitoring, somewhat what I think Cody also mentioned, right? Kind of feed it, all of it, as part of leveraging AI-based platforms, and then not just create user stories, but create acceptance criterias, maybe visual regression, like Diana said, functional regression, or even personalized user experience. So what we were able to kind of see was create all these different aspects which are more personalized to the existing application, and then create acceptance criterias out of that. And then as AI generates code for web-based platform, run it against what AI is generating. So in a way, basically testing what AI is generating on two different dimensions of the AI tools as well. Of course, it was not the same tool generating the acceptance criteria and generating automation, but in a way, your AI was validating itself, but more front in the life cycle. And it kind of shows how structured it can bring in terms of that design intent to production validation. While as of today, if you think about it, it happens kind of more in silos, right? You have, like Ivan said, you have an accessibility discipline, you have a performance monitoring discipline, you have a functional or a visual discipline, and everything's kind of happening a bit more in silos. But leveraging some of this AI based process, it can kind of come together in a more seamless fashion, right? And we're kind of seeing it, how it play out. A lot of maturity would happen, of course, as tools around it, whether it be GitHub Copilot or GitLab Duo, and tools like this, which kind of get matured. And then all these niche tools, whether it be visual regression, automation regression, accessibility regression. But I think the more, unlike other disciplines, the more front in the cycle it gets, the more value it's going to generate.
Thanks, Diana and Guljeet. Great thoughts on setting this specific question around design to quality. We'll hear Ivan from you, and then we'll take the last question for where each one of you can contribute. But Ivan, would love your concluding thoughts on the design and how the quality assurance can happen in design to final product. Over to you, Ivan.
Yeah, I can be very quick. Guljeet hit the nail on the head around design validation. There is a rise in AI-powered design validation platforms, and they bridge the gap between the intent and the final delivery by providing context and intent-aware validation at every single step of the journey. So there's those two words again, context and intent, and that's what's got to flow through your whole process. And just as large language models have learned to understand human language, there are models now that understand design languages and could take conceptual designs and turn them into concrete requirements for development and test cases for testing those requirements as well. So these systems provide additional context for quality assurance tools, for test automation tools, to provide more nuanced testing. And you can start touching upon things that Diana was talking about accessibility, validating that what was actually designed in your design tools actually produced in the final product. So these validation platforms provide a nice feedback loop where design, development, and QA are continuously aligned, and everything's fed back into the original requirements.
Fantastic. Great. Thanks a lot for sharing these insights. A lot of actionable takeaways from it. We are almost at the fag end. So what we're going to do is, let's take one last question from each one of you. Your bullet point response to that would be really, really helpful for the community. How do you see the future of AI in dev and QA workflows evolving over the next few years? Of course, looking forward to your leadership comments on this. Any quick examples you can give from initiatives you are taking within your organizations in these direction will also be great as part of your response. So let's start with Artem, followed by Koti, Diana, Guljeet, and Ivan.
Yeah, I have seen the, by the way, concerns in the chat here, Vinto and QA. Hey, what are we going to do? Like the payment disparity and so on and so forth. Well, trust me, you shouldn't worry. So there might be a world going forward where they wouldn't be developers, only QA, because what the AI. So the job going forward of humans would be making sure that the specifications are good enough to basically validate that your QA specifications then generated are also good enough, and that should be eventually be enough to generate the code, right? There's no developers now. So that is something is going on. So another thing I believe to consider right now, as almost all companies are releasing AI features, specifically LLM-based features, is the testing of those features. I think that this is what everybody should be looking at. Whereas OWASP Institute have released OWASP top 10 for LLM security. And this is something you probably want to make sure you validate in your organizations, and this is how you can become kind of a leader in this LLM security testing and bring it up in your organizations. And the great thing regarding what TestRigor is coming up is that we do have a feature to help people to validate those AI features, chatbots, and so on and so forth, and to use AI to be able to validate the output of AI. This is something I believe is important for everyone going forward, because you do want to make sure that AI is secure and compliant in your organization.
Neat. Yeah, I'll try to keep it quick. I will again echo a little bit of Artem. I love what he said about not having to worry about your job going away. We say that frequently, and I really believe it. There is no place that is not trying to deliver more software than they can right now. So AI is going to help us write software, but the harder part is going to be validating that the software getting written by AI is the right stuff, and people are going to be needed to do that. And one of the hardest things to determine in the future is going to be, does what happens make sense to a human being? And the only person who can do that is another human. So everybody can feel like they're still going to be valuable. And then, like I said earlier, I think what we'll see is better and better models getting more and more integrated into the tools and the flows. So we won't be thinking anymore about, oh, I just did some stuff with AI today. It's just going to be part of what you're doing. And we're trying to put that into our entire platform so that you have, I think Ivan mentioned context. That's the real key, is getting more and more context into the system so that these sort of language understanding tools can apply that. And that's it.
Thank you so much. I'll hop in. I think there's I'll add two things that I'm particularly excited about, but loved hearing your answer to, Cody. I think AIs will be better thought partners for developers. I think using a conversational interface to talk through changes before writing a line of code, like these conversations will extract developer intent and requirements, like we were talking about, but also I think they'll also steer the models towards higher quality results as well. And like, to be clear, this isn't just like chat, as we've been talking about as it's implemented today. This is like with greater purpose, where like AI is shaping code alongside the developer. It really is your co-pilot. The second thing I wanted to add is that I think that AI can and is becoming more proactive. You might have seen we recently introduced a feature called code scanning autofix, which is powered by Copilot and CodeQL. And so this is like a great example where AI is being proactive. It's finding, you could consider in the future that your QA team is identifying something that needs to change, and Copilot implementing that change, then leaving a PR for a developer to review. That's much faster. So I'm really excited about both those things as well as many of the other comments.
Yeah, I love the idea of developers just reviewing PRs that are coming in, right?
Yeah, it's still that human component. Yeah.
Gurjeet, you're up next.
Sure, Ramon. So yeah, I'll keep it very quick. So, like with any other technology and inflection point of newer technology waves that come, I think it's gonna go through an evolution of a phase where it becomes worse, then it becomes better. And the reason I say that is we are already seeing a lot of tools just create AI kind of, just for injecting more code. And quite honestly, without that context, generation of that extra code is only going to increase a lot of technical debt. And we see this, this is not a surprise, right? We see this with any new technology wave that comes, that it kind of needs that time to kind of mature, right? So I think it's going to be really important for folks kind of adopting AI into their life cycle to see what is most context sensitive and what will do more harm than help, than injecting generative AI into kind of just injecting more code, whether it be upstream or downstream in the whole software development life cycle. You don't want too many thousands of test cases generated. You don't want unnecessary code being generated. Pretty much across the life cycle, you don't want more debt in your overall technical life cycle, right? So but that's kind of how it will evolve. The more context sensitive you can get, the better results you can drive in the kind of the value.
I'll round things off. First of all, first thing I say is I'm so glad that the AI winter is a couple of decades behind us now. We're in the AI heat wave. There's so much going on. It's really exciting. Generative AI over the last couple of years has unlocked a ton of innovation. Most technology stacks now have some sort of Copilot assistant in there. Predictive AI has largely confined itself to sort of simple automations of predefined repetitive tasks. But I think the next wave is going to be autonomous agents. So virtual developers, virtual testers participating in integrated decision-making partnership with humans in the loop. And the key thing there is humans in the loop. I think everybody here is acknowledging that AI is not going to replace developers and QA any day soon, but there's I forgot what the Latin term is for who's going to guard the guards. I think QA is going to be the last vestige of independent human endeavor in software development to make sure that whatever gets created by AI is of the right quality and satisfies the right design intent. This will be the third AI platform that I've developed. Did one on customer service automation, another one on hyper-personalization, and now doing one on quality assurance. So it's really exciting times. And these autonomous agents will collaborate across agents that are assigned to sort of requirements, design, development, QA, and they will act as that context and intent glue, not just between the humans in each of those teams, but also the AI models in each of those teams to inject that context and intent at every stage of the journey to make a nice closed loop. And I think in QA in particular, an example would be that AI in QA would transition from automatically generating test cases and other assets to orchestrating entire test strategies that dynamically adjust the testing scenarios based on features and requirements from the business. so that you're always testing the things that are most important. So autonomous agents, that's next.
Wow, that's great, and big bold aspirations and statements from you all. But love what he said. The community here is going to be the guardians and hold the guard. So from QA taking center stage to really AI becoming the thought partner for the entire software development, design and quality control, to of course raising the bar, not creating more tech debt. And as Ivan, you brilliantly mentioned, the community out here has to stand up as the guardians of what happens in software development and lifecycle to create beautiful experience out there. Thanks a lot for taking our time and sharing powerful takeaways for our community. I wish this discussion could go on for longer and we had much more time, but of course we'll reconnect with the community soon and we'll get you back on this forum in various other platforms. Thanks to each one of you for being very kind and taking out time for the community and helping them understand what's really happening behind the scenes in the tools that you are building. They'll continue showing their love across different platforms. Till then, we're going to see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thanks, Mohit. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Have a great weekend, all.